Ever get that feeling like we're all just uh, characters in some kind of giant sim game?
You mean like The Sims, but for the whole planet?
Yeah, exactly. Except today's deep dive is about something even wilder, something called the sentient world simulation.
The SWS. Yeah, that's about as close to simulating the whole planet as it gets. And the crazy part is, this isn't sci-fi. We've got 2 articles here about the SWS, a real-world project trying to model, well, pretty much everything.
Okay, hold on. When you say model everything, you don't just mean like a really detailed Google Earth.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be more to it.
Way more. Think global events, individual cities, even down to how traffic flows and how hospitals operate. Like, picture a sim city so advanced, it can predict how a tweet about a water shortage might impact what's on the shelves at your local grocery store 3 days later.
Wait, seriously? That's insane. But also, how is that even possible?
So it all started with this project called Seize the Synthetic Environment for Analysis and Simulations, developed at Purdue University. They were using it for things like predicting market trends, mostly for Fortune 500 companies.
Okay, so from Wall Street to simulating the whole world, how did that leap even happen?
Well, around 2004, the U.S. military got interested. They saw the potential of Seize for simulating the, how do I put it, the non-kinetic aspects of combat.
Non-kinetic.
Yeah, think like diplomacy, economics, social dynamics, all the stuff that influences conflict beyond just bombs and bullets, right?
The human element.
Exactly. And so C's, it kind of evolved into the SWS, taking things to a whole other level.
I bet. So we're talking about modeling human behavior, but on a global scale. How do you even begin to process that?
Well, the SWS is constantly taking in real-world data. News feeds, census data, economic indicators, even what's trending on social media. It's constantly updating, evolving. That's what makes it so unique.
So it's like a digital crystal ball, but instead of some vague prediction, you get to see how things might play out, step by step, in this incredibly detailed virtual world.
You got it. For agencies like Homeland Security or the Defense Department, that's a game changer. They can run simulations of, say, a terrorist attack or a natural disaster, test out different responses, all without any real-world consequences.
That's got to be invaluable for them.
Mhm.
But it also seems like a ton of power,
Mm.
to be able to potentially predict the future like that.
Oh, for sure. A tool this powerful definitely comes with some big ethical questions. But before we open that can of worms, let's dive a little deeper into what the SWS can actually do.
Okay, because my mind is already kind of blown, so hit me with it. What else can this thing do?
So imagine trying to understand what might happen after like a cyber attack, say on a power grid, right? The SWS lets you hit play and actually watch how that event might ripple outwards.
Okay, so you'd see blackouts, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you'd see the blackouts for sure. But then you might also see how that disrupts supply chains, how it impacts hospitals, even how people are reacting on social media in those areas.
It's like watching a disaster movie unfold in front of you, but instead of popcorn, you've got all this data and these insights.
That's a great way to put it. And the applications, they go way beyond just preparing for disasters. One of the articles even talks about how the SWS has been used to model how effective different public health campaigns might be.
Oh, wow. So instead of putting out a PSA and crossing your fingers, you can actually test out different messages, see what actually works with certain people.
Exactly. And it gets even wilder. They've even used it to model how misinformation spreads, like trying to understand how these conspiracy theories take root and what you can actually do to combat them.
Okay, see, now that's what I'm talking about. Being able to get a glimpse into how information spreads, how people form opinions, that's huge.
It's huge, and that's exactly why there are so many ethical concerns about the SWS. You're right, this isn't just about predicting traffic jams. It's about understanding and maybe even influencing human behavior on this massive scale.
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility. And, well, a lot of potential for things to go wrong. That's where those ethical considerations come into play, right?
100%. I mean, one of the biggest questions is who gets access to this tech? Right now, it's mostly government agencies, but what if corporations start getting their hands on this? Or even just everyday people, Who gets to decide?
It's almost like the SWS itself is a perfect example of the dilemma we face in the digital age. This incredible tool, this potential to solve problems and understand ourselves better. But then on the flip side, you have these massive ethical questions lurking in the background.
And you can't forget about the issue of accuracy. The SWS is only as good as the data it's fed. Even with mountains of data, you're still dealing with the fact that humans can be pretty unpredictable.
Because people, we don't always act rationally. Sometimes we just go with our gut or make decisions based on bad information.
Exactly. That's not something a model, no matter how fancy, can perfectly predict. There's always going to be that element of chaos, that wild card that throws a wrench in the gears.
So it's not really about replacing human judgment. It's more like giving us a better starting point, a way to see the potential consequences of our choices or maybe our lack of choices play out in advance.
That's a great way to think about it. It's a super advanced risk assessment tool, basically. It can point out potential problems, maybe help us see where our thinking is flawed, maybe even help us make better choices.
But it's still on us in the real world to decide what to do with that information. We still have to be the ones grappling with the ethics of it all, weighing the good against the bad.
Which is exactly how it should be. And honestly, that's what I think is the most important takeaway from all this. The SWS, it's not some magical answer to everything. It's more like a mirror.
It's almost like that saying, the only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. But in this case, it's more like the more we try to simulate everything, the more we realize how much we don't know.
That is a great way to put it. And that's what I find so fascinating about this whole SWS thing. It's not just some impressive tech, it's like it reflects this very human need to try to understand everything around us, even though we know deep down it's probably impossible.
It's kind of poetic, actually. We started this whole deep dive talking about feeling like NPCs in some kind of simulation, and now I'm wondering if the fact that we're even trying to build the SWS means that we can't be just code. Well, if you think about it, how could you ever program something as complex and unpredictable as, human consciousness?
Ah, I see what you mean. It's like, if we can barely wrap our heads around it, how could we ever program it?
Exactly.
That's a question that's been kicking around for centuries, philosophers and scientists, everybody. And the SWS, well, it doesn't really give us any answers, but it definitely adds a whole new layer to the debate.
Because, if we can get this close to simulating the world, what's stopping someone or something from having already done the same thing to us? You know?
Now you're going full Matrix on me.
Hey, you can't talk about simulations without going there a little bit, but seriously, it does make you think.
It really does. It's a total mind bender, that's for sure. And it speaks to how much staying power that whole simulation hypothesis has.
Right. But even if our reality is just one level in some much bigger simulation, does that even change how we live our lives? Does it make our choices less meaningful or our relationships less real? What do you think?
Those are some seriously big questions, and honestly, I don't think there are any easy answers.
Yeah, you're probably right. Definitely something to ponder, though.
For sure. And hey, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not about finding all the answers. Maybe it's about asking the right questions, to keep exploring, keep learning, and see where it takes us.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you all to ponder those very questions. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the wild world of the sentient world simulation. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep learning.